Today we're going to do something that I can just about assure you happens all the time. We are going to shamelessly copy a song without actually plagiarizing it. How can that be, you ask? Well, let me show you. But first... So before I get all talky here, if you just want to skip ahead to the song creation part of this, I'll post the chapter times on one of the sides here. I never know when I'm facing the camera which side the graphic's going to be on when I edit later. I don't know. And hey, if you like what I'm doing here, please consider a like and subscribe. I do 2 videos a week, sometimes more, and some live stuff, gear reviews, lessons, all that good stuff. I opened the video by saying we're going to do something that happens by accident all the time. And what I mean by that is that if you're writing music that's anything but bizarre, completely out there, avant-garde stuff, you are using structures to a song that are going to be familiar and based around things that have been heard before. Verse, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus. There's not too many different structures out there that'll make sense when you're listening to them. It's not like you take a bunch of song parts and just throw them into a stew and hope for the best. And then within those song parts, you're generally working with chord progressions that only go in so many directions. If you're sticking to a diatonic key, which most music does with very few variations, you've only got 7 chords to choose from within that key when you're creating your parts. And so what I'm trying to say is that when you put the song together, of course, the specific way in which you do it is going to be unique to you and hopefully original. But invariably, you're going to create something with chord progressions and structure that's probably been done like thousands of times before. If that wasn't the case, it would be really difficult to emotionally connect to a piece of music that you are writing because it would just be too unfamiliar. Anyway, that takes us to today's experiment, which is to do this process consciously. We're going to take a song from, this little obscure Australian band called AC/DC. And the song, of course, as you saw in the thumbnail or the title of the video, is Back in Black. And what we're going to do is copy the exact structure of that song and the same chord progressions, but we're going to do it in such a way that it's not that song at all. It's going to have the same tempo. When there's a riff, the riffs imply certain chord structures. We're going to stick to that as best we can. And well, enough talking here. Let's get into the studio and get started. Okay, you can see we have an instance of Reaper loaded up here, which is my DAW of choice these days. And I have the entire structure of the song fleshed out down to the parts and the exact number of measures, the same tempo of 92. And you can see that at the very beginning there in the intro. I've already kind of worked out an idea. I have some drums chosen for it, and I played bass and a guitar part on one side of the stereo spectrum. I'm going to double it here so you can see. With Back in Black, you have the song starting with the hi-hat clicks and the guitar just kind of clicking along with it. So in the spirit of that, keeping with the structure and ideas of the song, I started with drum fill instead of just the clicks, and I played a little guitar lead over it and then into the riff. Now the riff needs to outline, what we're doing here is using the structure and chord progression of the song. It needs to outline the E, D, A, just like in Back in Black, but I'm not going to just play the chords because then we're playing the song. This is supposed to be creating another song out of the framework of an original song. So I'm going to do a riff that follows that, and then with Back in Black, every other time you finish the progression, every even number time you have that chromatic, that kind of thing going on. So we're also going to end the riff with a chromatic thing every other time. So I'm going to play along with what I had there so you can hear what I came up with and see that it follows the same structure. All right, you can see there that I'm outlining the chords, just playing that root, the E, and then a riff, D, and then a riff, and then A, and then a little riff, and then again, every other time the chromatic. So we're really sticking with the structure and chord progression of Back in Black. Let's move on to the verse part. I think I'm not doing vocals on this. It's going to be an instrumental, so I'm going to have a lead guitar essentially act as the voice. And I think for the verse part, what I'm going to do is have the rhythm guitars drop out and just have bass and keyboards. So I'm going to use another Tune Track product. I got the drums here. I forgot to talk about that at the beginning. Drums are all being done with Easy Drummer. And I'm grabbing out of this library here mostly, which is the classic rock grooves. And I'm going to load up an instance of Easy Keys, and we're going to mess with that. All right, so I've got an instance of Easy Keys loaded up here. My thinking on this was, with Back in Black, the verse and the intro are really the same thing. The chords just continue. But the way I did it was this classic rock kind of riff. And I could have, this didn't have to be a classic rock sounding type of song. It's just the way I went with it. We could have done anything with this chord progression. I could have done something more like a 2000s metal track. But this is just what I was feeling for this. And anyway, we've got that guitar riff on the intro. And if we were to be totally like Back in Black, we would continue the same guitar riff through to the verse. But this is a little bit more busy than just the chords are in that song. And if I'm going to have a lead melody over it, it's not going to work very well. So my thought was to strip it down on the verses and go bass, drums, and some kind of keyboard track. And now I'm not much of a keyboard player, so I'm going to let Easy Keys do the heavy lifting. I'm going to find a library here that kind of works for this, and then we'll program it so that the chords are the same thing. So we're here. We just load it up and look at the libraries. I guess I could look at basic rock. I got to find something here that's going to work, and I'll pick something that's somewhere near the tempo. So we have this. Just hit it and see. Too subdued. We need something more fitting of the song. Too bluesy, boogie. No. No, I'm not digging it. Let's go over to something else. Let's try... Let's go over to funk, because this has a bit of a funky feel. It's that bluesy rock kind of thing. I'll do straight. We're at 92, so let's see. It says Marky. That's cool. Let's see what that is. That's kind of cool. All right, let's see if we can make something like that work. So we drop it in here. It all happens at the 12th measure. And, well, there's a lot of movement here that we don't have. We don't have, it's just got to be one measure of E, one measure of D, 2 measures of A. There might be too much movement. Let's see if we can program it and make it work. It's an E minor. It's an E minor something. E minor what? With a major 7th? No, we don't want that. E minor 7th. Also E minor 7th. And E minor 7th again. This might not work. Let's just see. Oh, that works. That works. All right, so we have to just program in the chord changes now. So it's E to D, not D major 7 again. D again, D minor 7. Okay, this might be working. And then we need the A. A minor, A minor, A minor. It's all A minors, a whole bunch of A minors to make it work with the song. And it's 2 measures of it, so this may get weird sounding, I don't know yet. So we got a bunch of A minors. We got to get rid of that major 7th. We don't want that. Okay, so we might have something here. All right, that works. I'm going to program it over the other half of it, and then I'm going to lay down the bass. Okay, so I want to lay down the lead melody here on the verse first before I move on to the chorus, which I think I'll probably do tomorrow. I've got a sound that's just a basic Marshall with a little bit of reverb on it. And I'm going to play that. I've loaded Fab Filter onto the track 2 for some additional reverb, which you can see here. You're not going to hear it when I do the first lead. You're just hearing the sound going in, and then I'll play it back. Hopefully I'll get this in one take. I kind of have an idea where I'm going. And then you'll hear the fully affected. It's going to sound a little bit dry and crackly here without that. Missed that little slide there. So I know I'm holding that note at the end there. Let's see if that buildup was kind of sloppy or not. We'll just listen back here. The timing's a little weak there. I'm just like, I'm playing kind of a let your hands go kind of thing. It's not really organized completely, but it sounds okay. I've got to fix the timing, and I've got one note I don't like in there. I'm going to go back and patch that up a little bit. I'm not going to record all that because this would take forever if I do that, but that's the basic idea for that part. We'll move on to the chorus tomorrow. We move on to the chorus now, and I've laid down the bass and the drums already for what I want there. And this part of the song is going to sound the most like Back in Black. It's kind of hard to avoid, you know, that chord progression in the chorus, that moves in such a way as it almost forms the melodic element itself. And so I'm going to have to do what I can to deviate a little bit from it while holding on to what the progression is. So instead of just moving completely through it and starting it on the end of the beat like they do in Back in Black, I'm going to do something like an arpeggio, like a... And the next part is that... So I'm going to try to do this all as kind of arpeggiated chords, and let's see if that works. Okay, that kind of works. I got to play it a little more cleanly, put the stereo side on, and then we'll come back and put some kind of lead over it and create a chorus melody there. All right, for the lead melody on this, I've dialed in a sound with an octaver on it. I wanted to have something that was a little funky on this, and I've been messing around with some just kind of pentatonic. Something like that. I'm going to try over it. Let's see if it works. I kind of know where I'm going. Okay, so from here, the song repeats verse, chorus again. You can see I went back into kind of the intro there. If I was not sticking exactly to Back in Black, I would kind of re-intro and then do the full verse, but we're sticking with the exact length. Now on Back in Black, he's playing the verse chords the same when he sings, so we didn't move off of it that much, but because we changed the verse and just dropped down and had keys and bass there, it's a little bit different. So I've kind of got like a half of a verse / intro, and then I'll do half of a verse and stick within the exact structure of Back in Black. And then we're just going to repeat the chorus. I'm not going to film all the leads and everything over that. We'll do that when you see the final version of the song at the end, because I'm going to change it up a little bit and do some harmonies and do things to vary it so it's not exactly the same from part 1 to part 2. And so the next big section we have to tackle here is what is the solo in Back in Black, and how do we make a solo in an instrumental song when it's already kind of full of solos? Let's talk about that. So with the first verse and chorus and second verse and chorus done, we move on to the next section of the song, and it gets kind of challenging from here because as an instrumental, it can get really redundant. There's 4 choruses in this song, and with vocals that works, but as an instrumental, it can become a little bit too redundant. And so I think this is where we're going to have to get the most creative, and it gets a little more challenging. I've got a cool idea for the solo, and I think I've got a way to break up the 3rd chorus and do it a little differently and still keep to the structure and make it different enough that it's cool. But we'll come back to that. Let's talk about the solo first. Now in the Back in Black solo, the whole thing kind of breaks down there, and you've got and he kind of breaks up what he's playing. It's not just a ripping solo right off the bat, and it builds and builds and builds until he does more stuff. So I've put together a drum part here that's a little bit more wide open with whole notes, and it's sticking to the same basic chord structure, and I got an idea of what I want to do over it where I can build on it as well. So I'm going to flip on the delay here in copious amounts and give it a shot. Hopefully that didn't suck too bad. I switched guitars here because we're going to jump ahead to the bridge first so I can make sure that my chorus idea flows into it. I already know what I want to do for the bridge. We're taking the same basic idea of a riff in Back in Black. He's got something similar to that. So we're going to take that part and write a riff as well. It won't be totally chromatic like his, but it's still going to be E to A, back to E, leading up to the chorus. And I want to do it with a very small kind of sound, as I said, and I'm going to put the out of phase pickup on and play the riff so when the chorus hits, it really hits. You can see how the chorus kind of explodes out of that. I'm going to have to mess around with some effects. I want to have a bass match what it's doing, but also have the bass be small. I might even make the drum sound a different drum sound so the whole thing is small and it explodes out. But now I can see if my idea for this kind of weird version of the 3rd chorus will work into it. All right, so now that I have that bridge down, or at least the framework of it, I can know if this idea I have for the 3rd chorus flows into it well. I've stuck a kind of drum roll at the end of it to lead from one part to the other. Again, I don't know if I'm going to make the drums a different sound or whatnot. I just kind of want the framework here, and I'll mess with the sounds and the textures a little bit later, and you guys will hear that in the final song video when the whole thing's done. So the idea is that for the 3rd chorus, just to break everything down and play it alone as an acoustic, I've got my Fender Acoustasonic Strat here, which I have a review of. I'll post it up here. And I plugged in one of the models, and we're just going to play a stripped down version of that chorus so it leads to the bridge, and then the whole thing explodes out into the 4th chorus. There you have it. That's just kind of the shell of the song. You could see the ideas and parts as I was creating them. Hopefully you get the idea of how closely we stuck to the song and didn't think it sounded exactly the same. I'm going to do a lot to seam layers together, add harmonies and things like that, and make the parts flow or transition more smoothly. And I didn't want to record all those little pieces because it would be a really long video then. In any case, if you want to hear the final product, I'll put a link to it here. I'll do a music video for it. And I just want to have one note here. If I was actually doing this as like a kind of song that I was going to release, I think I would probably get rid of the third chorus where I broke it down to the acoustic there, because without vocals on it, going from the solo to that whole bridge and that other chorus, which is almost a bridge the way I played it, it's a little bit too long. I would just go from the solo to the bridge and out from there. But in any case, I hope you guys learned a lot from this. Again, if you like what I'm doing, please like and subscribe and all that. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I get back to everybody as soon as I can. And until next time, guys, keep making great music. Hey friends, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. It makes the whole world better.